the Port of Brunswick. Georgia isn't on any tourist maps. It's where I've worked for 15 years as Declan Mercer, now a logistics coordinator for deepwater shipping, a private contractor handling specialized cargo for government agencies. My team consists of 4 others: Marcus Dawkins, ex-Marine with massive forearms; Eliza Reeves, our paperwork wizard; Tommy Chen, our tech specialist; and Bo Wilson, the eager new guy with too many questions. I received the rule book on my first day. Standard safety stuff until page 19. Special handling procedures for designated cargo. After what happened to Riley Jenkins last year when he ignored Rule 16, none of us question these rules anymore. Here are the most important ones. Rule 1. No cargo handling for designated containers between 3:27 a.m. and 4:11 a.m. Rule 2. If you hear whistling from a container, mark it with a blue tag and contact your supervisor. Rule 3. Some containers feel heavier than manifested. Use standard protocols for the documented weight. Rule 4. Containers with both yellow circle and red triangle markings must never be stored next to those with black squares. Rule 5. Some containers require verbal confirmation codes before handling. I've followed these rules religiously for 4 years, no matter how strange they seem. But last Tuesday, something happened that made me realize they aren't just arbitrary procedures. They're warnings. Safeguards against whatever's inside those containers. This is the story of what happened when one rule was broken, and why I now sleep with the lights on, wondering if what escaped is coming for me next. Tuesday at the Port of Brunswick began with a gray sky promising afternoon rain. I arrived at 5:15 a.m., coffee in hand, the taste of last night's bourbon still lingering. Hank, the security guard, greeted me with troubling news. Blackwater shipment coming in, 6 containers, priority clearance, and they're sending a babysitter. My stomach tightened. Blackwater shipments, our code for high-security government loads, were rare enough. But a federal observer? That was unusual. Inside the administrative building, Eliza was already working. "Morning, boss. Manifest for today's Blackwater shipment just came through. They're sending Dr. Abernathy to supervise." I groaned. Aaron Abernathy was a Department of Energy scientist who'd supervised 2 previous shipments, following my team like an anxious shadow. "Tommy called in sick," she continued. "I've got Bo filling in." I frowned. Bo doesn't have clearance for Blackwater protocols. "He does now." She handed me a Department of Homeland Security form. Emergency clearance authorization, signed by Director Hayes himself. That was unusual. Emergency clearances typically took 72 hours. Why would the director of DHS's Special Materials Division sign off for a junior dock worker? I found Marcus inspecting our equipment. "Morning, December. Equipment's fine, but forecast says lightning this afternoon. You know how Blackwater gets about moving cargo during storms." Rule number 12. Specifically prohibited handling designated containers during thunderstorms. I headed to Warehouse C, where Bo was setting up scanning equipment. For someone only 3 months on the job, he worked with unusual confidence. "Where'd you get the technical specs?" I asked, noting he was using classified documentation. "Digital library, sir. Tommy showed me how to access it." A lie. Tommy couldn't grant others access to classified materials. My radio crackled. "Mercer." Eliza's tense voice came through. "The Blackwater shipment's been moved up, arriving in 30 minutes. Dr. Abernathy's already here." Back at admin, I found Eliza with Abernathy, who seemed different. Rigid posture, no nervous energy, wearing an ill-fitting dark suit instead of his usual khakis. In my office, he dropped a bombshell. "The containers are classified obsidian black," he said flatly. "Rule number 8 has been temporarily suspended." I froze. Rule number 8 required full scanning of all designated containers. no exceptions. "That's not possible," I protested. "The authorization is here," he replied, showing me signatures from the National Security Advisor and Secretary of Defense. As he left, I noticed two oddities: bluish discoloration at his wrists and a strange device clipped to his belt. Something was very wrong, but my clearance didn't allow for questions. Whatever was coming, my job was to handle it according to protocol, even if the protocol itself had changed. The cargo vessel Bellerophon appeared at 6:32 a.m., entirely matte black with minimal markings. No shipping company logo, just a small American flag and registration number. "That ain't no regular transport," Marcus whispered, as 6 individuals in tactical gear disembarked, taking positions around the gangway. Dr. Abernathy introduced me to their leader, Agent Blackwood, who instructed us tersely, "Your team's sole responsibility is transport to storage. My people handle security." When I asked about handling precautions, Blackwood provided specifics. Containers are reinforced with lead and graphene composite. Each weighs 7.2 tons, payload centered. Must remain level, tilt tolerance under 3 degrees. Temperature between 50 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And containers 1 through 5 must remain at least 30 feet from container 6. "What's in container 6? I asked. "Classified," Abernathy interjected. The first container emerged, standard-sized, matte black, marked only with OB731A1. As it settled onto our transport, I noticed a faint humming sound from within. "You hear that?" I murmured to Marcus. "Sounds like running equipment." He nodded. "Power source, maybe?" One by one, the first 5 containers were transferred without incident. Then came container 6, OB731B1, visibly different with additional external bracing, unfamiliar hazard symbols, and monitoring equipment. Most disturbing was the condensation forming on its exterior. The metal was heating up. "The thermal signature is all wrong," Bo whispered beside me. One of Blackwood's men ordered us back to the minimum 30-foot clearance line. As the container was being lowered, the humming noise changed pitch, becoming erratic. One of the sensors began flashing red. "Containment fluctuation," shouted one of Blackwood's team. "Pressure spike in the primary chamber." Abernathy rushed forward with a handheld device. "Get it on the ground now." The container was about 10 feet above the transport when a corner seam split open with a metallic groan. What escaped wasn't gas or liquid, but a rippling distortion in the air that moved with purpose. "Breach. We have a containment breach," Blackwood shouted into his communicator. "Full lockdown of Dock 27. Alarms blared as emergency doors closed automatically. Blackwood's team donned specialized masks. "What the hell is going on?" Marcus demanded. Abernathy thrust similar masks into our hands. "Put this on. Tell your team to evacuate to the safe room in the administrative building, now." More distortion leaked from the container, forming an undulating cloud that hovered like a predator deciding which way to move. I radioed Eliza to initiate Emergency Protocol Sierra, then sent Marcus and Bo to the safe room. As I watched Blackwood's team attempt to seal the crack, I realized with growing horror that whatever had just escaped, the rulebook had nothing in it about how to handle this situation. 6 hours after the breach, Dock 27 was unrecognizable. Military-grade barriers surrounded the facility, manned by personnel in advanced hazmat suits. Mobile laboratories and command centers had been helicoptered in. I sat in my office, now an interview room, where a woman introduced herself as Dr. Elise Winters. She wore a dark suit with a silver geometric pin matching symbols from Container 6. "Your colleagues are safe and being processed according to exposure protocols," she stated when I asked about my team. "Ms. Reeves was in a sealed environment. Mr. Dawkins and Mr. Wilson are under observation." "Under observation? Were they exposed?" I demanded. Initial assessments indicate Mr. Wilson may have had secondary contact with the material, she replied clinically. Dr. Winters removed a syringe with amber liquid from a container. I need to administer this prophylactic treatment for potential low-level exposure. I refused until she explained what we'd encountered. The material is designated XM91, she finally disclosed. It's transformative matter that restructures atomic bonds, alters molecular configurations, rewrites DNA. It was discovered in the Marianas Trench 14 months ago. Is it alive? I asked, remembering its deliberate movements. Debatable. It exhibits both directed intelligence and environmental response algorithms. Full exposure results in comprehensive cellular reconstruction, beginning with the dermis. The process is painful, irreversible, and fatal in 93% of cases. And the other 7%? I asked. They undergo more complete transformation. Their physical forms stabilize, but cognitive patterns become altered. They become extensions of the material itself. I mentioned Abernathy's strange blue wrist markings, which visibly alarmed her. She left to make an urgent call, accidentally leaving her tablet behind. The screen showed security footage of Beau in a medical room, his bare back covered with intricate blue-green patterns that pulsed with subtle movement. When she returned with armed guards, her composure had transformed to urgency. Dr. Abernathy was not authorized personnel. The real Dr. Abernathy was found dead this morning, 3 hours after your Abernathy delivered those containers. A compromised agent who orchestrated this entire breach, she explained, as I was escorted for extensive medical screening. Hours of invasive procedures followed, scans, blood draws, tissue samples, while my questions about Marcus and Beau went largely unanswered. Eventually, I was given scrubs and placed in a temporary containment dormitory, effectively a prison cell with stark white walls that hummed with embedded technology. Sleep brought nightmares of blue patterns crawling across my skin and containers that whispered in languages I almost understood. Mid-morning, Dr. Winters returned with General Lawrence Harding, a stern-faced military man with exhausted eyes who needed information about my interactions with Abernathy and Beau. I described everything: Abernathy's changed demeanor, the rushed protocols, Beau's unusual preparation and technical knowledge. Wilson has only been employed for 3 months, Harding noted. His credentials were expertly falsified, good enough for routine checks, but they don't hold up under scrutiny. We believe both individuals are part of the same phenomenon, Dr. Winters explained. The entity impersonating Abernathy shows evidence of late-stage integration, approximately 6 months post-exposure. Wilson exhibits early-stage changes, suggesting more recent exposure. Harding placed a tablet before me, showing a map with red dots across North America and Europe. Each marker represents a confirmed infiltration event over the past 8 months. Medical facilities, military installations, transportation hubs. Why Brunswick? I asked. Proximity, Dr. Winters replied, zooming to show a location 40 miles inland. The Savannah River Nuclear Facility, one of the largest repositories of weapons-grade plutonium in the eastern United States. You think they're trying to build a nuclear weapon? Worse, Harding said grimly. We believe they're attempting to expose radioactive materials to XM91, creating a self-propagating chain reaction that could exponentially increase its transformative capabilities. They led me to an observation room containing a transparent cube. Inside sat Beau, or what remained of him. His skin was translucent, revealing geometric blue-green patterns pulsing beneath. His violet eyes swirled like oil on water. "Hello, Declan," he greeted me, his voice unnervingly normal despite his transformed appearance. "They finally let you come see me." "Were you ever really Beau Wilson?" I asked through the intercom. He laughed, a sound like wind chimes made of glass. I am Bo Wilson, or what Bo Wilson was always meant to become. I was exposed 67 days ago during a mining operation in Namibia. What are you planning with the containers? Who says the breach wasn't exactly what was supposed to happen? His smile widened. The containers were just the delivery mechanism. You wanted XM91 released, I realized. Brunswick's port connects to 16 separate watershed systems, Bo explained, tracing complex patterns on the wall with elongated fingers. From there to aquifers, rivers, municipal supplies, and eventually to the cooling systems of the Savannah River nuclear facility. Alarms suddenly blared. "Containment breach in Section 7, announced an automated voice. "All personnel initiate lockdown protocols immediately." Bo's expression transformed to serene satisfaction. "Right on schedule. Water remembers, Declan. And what it remembers, it shares." General Harding's radio crackled with panic. "Sir, the water main under the east wing is ruptured. We've got flooding in the lower levels and something's happening to the containment teams. They're changing." "Evacuate to secure levels," Dr. Winters urged, grabbing my arm. "Now!" Through facility windows, I glimpsed rising water, not clear but cloudy and faintly luminescent, with blue-green threads swirling within. "The quarantine protocols have been compromised," Harding barked into his radio. "Initiate Omega contingency." Dr. Winters paled. "Sir, there are still over 200 personnel on site." "I know what it means, Doctor," Harding replied grimly. "But if XM91 reaches groundwater, we're looking at regional contamination." We reached a secure elevator, requiring Harding's handprint and complex code. As doors closed, I glimpsed strange, luminescent patterns forming on corridor walls, as if the building itself was becoming infected. "Where are we going?" I demanded as we descended. "Sub-basement 3, the Omega facility." "What about everyone else? Marcus, Eliza? If we can contain this, there won't be a need for Omega protocol," Harding said emotionlessly. "What exactly is this Omega protocol?" I pressed. "Thermographic purification," Dr. Winters explained quietly. "The entire facility is rigged with incendiary systems, reaching temperatures over 3,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to break down XM91's molecular structure. You're going to incinerate the entire facility? With everyone inside?" The command center screens showed the infection spreading rapidly. Some personnel were already transforming, their skin developing geometric patterns, movements becoming increasingly unnatural. 17 minutes before critical spread parameters, announced a technician. I spotted Eliza on a security feed in an isolation room, unharmed but trapped. Another screen showed Marcus strapped to a medical bed, convulsing as blue-green patterns spread across his body, a painful, incompatible transformation tearing him apart. "Get Marcus and Eliza out of there," I demanded. "Marcus is beyond help," Harding replied grimly. "Evacuation teams are en route to Eliza's location." I watched helplessly as contaminated water reached Eliza's room, seeping under the door. The security officer sent to evacuate her was immediately affected, transformation spreading rapidly up his legs. "All evacuation teams are already deployed or compromised," a staff member reported. "Nearest available personnel are at least 6 minutes out." "She doesn't have 6 minutes," Dr. Winters said softly. 9 minutes to Omega threshold," intoned the monitoring system as we watched Eliza trapped in her quarantine room. The transformed security officer moved with inhuman grace, leaping onto the ceiling and removing the ventilation grate Eliza had been trying to reach. Instead of attacking, he offered his elongated hand in what appeared to be assistance. Eliza recoiled in terror. "There has to be something we can do," I pleaded. "Initiate emergency decontamination sequence for her room," Dr. Winters suggested. "It won't stop the transformation in progress, but might neutralize the active material." On the monitor, warning lights flashed, The transformed officer moved with blinding speed to the control panel, his fingers interfacing directly with the electronics. He's attempting to override the decontamination sequence, a technician reported. Suddenly, every screen in the command center momentarily displayed the same geometric pattern Bo had drawn on his cell wall. "System-wide intrusion attempt," someone shouted. "Something is trying to access our command protocols directly." 7 minutes to Omega threshold. On Eliza's screen, the transformed officer placed both palms against the wall. The solid concrete began to ripple and distort, flowing like liquid to create a perfectly circular doorway to an empty corridor. He gestured toward the opening. Escape. After a moment's hesitation, Eliza made her decision. She leapt across the flooded floor to the opening, carefully avoiding both water and the transformed officer. "Track her," Harding ordered. "Where does that corridor lead?" "Service Tunnel 3B. If she continues east, she could reach emergency exit 7, which is still operational." 5 minutes to Omega threshold. The main screen showed Bo's cell dissolving, patterns beneath his skin blindingly bright, pulsing in complex rhythms that matched the frequencies of the dissolving containment field. "He's resonating with the pattern throughout the facility," Dr. Winters explained, "creating a feedback loop that amplifies the transformative capabilities." "Cut the feed," Harding ordered. "Focus on tracking evacuation." "We've lost contact with 3 of the 5 emergency evacuation points," a staff member reported. 47 personnel remain unaccounted for. I spotted Eliza on a security feed, running toward an emergency exit. But a tendril of contaminated water was seeping through a ceiling vent ahead, forming a puddle directly in her path. "She can't see it," I said desperately. "Can't you warn her?" "The PA system in that section is offline." 3 minutes to Omega threshold. Suddenly, emergency lights activated in Eliza's corridor. Not standard red beacons, but a distinctive blue-green pulse matching the transformed areas. She stopped, peered cautiously around the corner, and spotted the danger. "The transformed officer is helping her," Dr. Winters murmured in astonishment. Eliza found a maintenance access panel and crawled into the narrow utility space, a tunnel potentially leading outside the facility. 2 minutes to Omega threshold. Final authorization required. General Harding's face set with grim determination. "Begin final evacuation of command staff. All personnel not essential to Omega protocol execution proceed immediately to secure transport." "Sir," a lieutenant objected, "we still have people unaccounted for." "Anyone still in there is already lost," Harding replied flatly. "Our responsibility is to ensure this doesn't spread beyond these walls." As I was led toward the evacuation elevator, I took one final glance at the security feeds. On one screen, Bo walked calmly through flooded corridors. On another, transformed personnel worked with disturbing coordination in the main laboratory. And on a third, barely visible before the doors closed, an external camera showed Eliza emerging from a ventilation duct beyond the perimeter. She had escaped, but faint blue-green lines were visible on her forearms, catching sunlight with an unnatural sheen. 3 weeks later, I sat in a sterile room at a Department of Defense observation facility in Northern Virginia. My containment suite was comfortable enough: bedroom, bathroom, small living area. But the reinforced door and constant monitoring reminded me I was essentially a prisoner. The daily tests continued: blood draws, brain scans, psychological evaluations, looking for any sign that XM91 had affected me. So far, nothing. The neural stabilizer they'd given me apparently worked. Dr. Winters entered carrying a tablet. Her formerly immaculate appearance had deteriorated. Dark circles under her eyes, hair hastily pulled back, wrinkled clothing. "How are you feeling today, Mr. Mercer?" "Same as yesterday. When can I leave?" She set down her tablet. "That's actually why I'm here. You've been cleared for conditional release." My heart leapt. And the conditions? Regular medical monitoring, restricted travel, and absolute confidentiality. Breaking silence about Brunswick means immediate recontainment. "What happened to the facility?" I asked. "Officially, a hazardous materials accident required controlled demolition." She hesitated. "Unofficially, the Omega Protocol was completely successful. No trace of XM-91 remained within the containment zone. And Marcus? I'm sorry," she said softly. "He didn't survive." The grief hit me anew. Marcus, with his booming laugh and stupid dad jokes, gone. What about Eliza? Did she make it? Dr. Winter's expression tightened. Ms. Reeves was tracked to Savannah, where she boarded a bus to Atlanta. Then she disappeared. Facial recognition systems have been unable to locate her. "Because she's changed," I whispered. "We believe so. The transformation would have progressed rapidly." She handed me a folder. "These are your release papers. A car will take you to temporary housing in Richmond tomorrow." After she left, I opened the nightstand drawer where I kept the only personal item they'd returned to me, the photo of my father on the Brunswick docks. Behind it, I'd hidden the scrap of paper Eliza had somehow smuggled to me during my second week here. The note contained just an address in Portland, Oregon, and 7 words. The pattern spreads. Choose transformation. Find me. Below it was a small blue-green mark, the beginning of a geometric pattern that seemed to shimmer when viewed from certain angles. As I packed my meager belongings, I contemplated the choice before me. Return to a life of constant surveillance, or follow the address to discover what Eliza had become, and perhaps what I might become too. In the bathroom mirror, I studied my reflection carefully. For a moment, in the fluorescent light, I thought I saw a faint blue sheen beneath the skin of my forearm. Just a trick of the light, probably. But sometimes, late at night, I still heard the humming from those containers in my dreams. And sometimes, I found myself drawing geometric patterns I didn't recognize, but somehow understood. Rule number 27. If you begin to see patterns where none should exist, report immediately for psychological evaluation. But some rules, I was beginning to realize, were meant to be broken. The Port of Brunswick has reopened under new management. Deepwater shipping no longer exists in any public record. The rulebook I once followed has been replaced with an updated version, now 36 pages long. The strangeness continues. Water levels in the Savannah River have been unusually high this season. People in 3 counties report seeing unusual lights in the night sky. And sometimes, if you stand at the edge of Dock 27 just before dawn, you might hear a faint whistling sound coming from beneath the water's surface. The rules exist for a reason, but the pattern exists for a purpose. And as it spreads through water systems, power grids, and communication networks, that purpose is becoming clearer. Transformation isn't just inevitable, it's necessary. The next stage in our evolution. I leave this record as both warning and invitation. By the time you read it, I'll be in Portland, finding Eliza, embracing what comes next. Some containers aren't meant to remain sealed forever, and some rules are meant to be broken.